Hello, and thank you for joining us for today's webinar, Resolve Conflict Constructively. Today's presenter is Gil Morales. For your convenience, the slide deck for today's presentation will be available on the CPS HR Consulting website. Please visit cpshr.us to download. The session is also being recorded, and we will post a link to the recording on that same page of our website as soon as it is available. If you have any questions for Gil, please enter them in the Q&A or chat panels on the right-hand side of your screen, and we will address them as time allows. And now, let's get started.
Okay, good morning, everyone. Happy Friday to you. My name is Gil Morales. I will be your trainer for the next 30 minutes here. We're going to go over this particular class here, or this is like a little appetizer for you, if you will, resolving conflict constructively. Every one of us has some form of conflict that we experience, either in our personal or in our professional lives, and we look at venues or we look at strategies by which we resolve that conflict. I'm going to give you just a simple 3-step methodology on which we look at conflict, some of the different components that are behind conflict, the main emotional drive with conflict, the objectives, and some of the verbiage that we can utilize. Today's training is open for whoever wants to enroll, and Angelique, there's a question that has been posted. Is today's training for both managers and analysts? And it's my understanding that this is an open enrollment for anyone that wants to participate. Is that correct?
Right. This is applicable to anybody who finds conflict.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Sounds good. Thank you. And thank you, Ivan, for your question. Here's some of the objectives that we're going to be looking at today. These are the objectives. We're going to identify specific types of conflict, what those look like, and how they impact us. We're going to look at responding to baiting language and what baiting language is. Baiting language is used in a number of different environments, but there's a reason and there's a purpose for baiting language. And then we're going to use bridging language. What does bridging language look like, and how do we use it to respond to defensive and or baiting language? 3 simple things, 3 easy things in the next 30 minutes. And these are tools, hopefully, that you can utilize in a real-world environment. But these are things that I teach in my class on a full-day session or a 4-hour session. Here is step number 1. You guys ready? Step number 1. These are the different types of workplace conflict. This is what's the area that I'm going to focus on. It's the workplace conflict, and nobody likes workplace conflict. Nobody goes to work anticipating or hoping that they're going to have conflict. On the contrary, people want to go to work feeling good about the workplace, feeling good about work, feeling good about being there. What happens is when there is conflict, there begins a decrease of morale. There is an emotional disconnect. It decreases communication. It truncates social ability, where people begin to work and operate and function in silos. And so when they function and work in silos, it creates an area and an environment where people are disconnected. And when you have disconnected areas, the area has the potential to become more toxic. And it doesn't just affect one person, it can affect all individuals. Has anybody been in an area where there is conflict, and the conflict is not necessarily bad, but where conflict happens and conflict is unresolved? Anybody ever been in a situation where it is unresolved conflict, and you don't know what to do about it? And you can respond in chat. Yeah, and you know those feelings. You know that feeling that you get of anxiety or stress, and how do I do this? How do I handle it? You know those feelings that you all get. Now, in the workplace, it's not necessarily about the work. I can do the work. I can engage the work. The work is static in nature. When I engage the work, I make it dynamic. When I interact with the work, I make the work dynamic. So it has nothing to do with the work itself, but it's the individuals that I work with and that I engage with. People may look at work differently. The ideas may differ from me, the suggestions, the processes, the procedures, the methodologies, all of these different things may come into conflict. So I may have relational conflict, right? I may have process conflict. In terms of tasks, how I do tasks or how I perform specific tasks, that may have or bring about a form of conflict. And all of these different things can create conflict or have the potential to create conflict within my work environment. As far as relational is concerned, relational has to do with my own personal values, my own values on a personal level, my own values that I bring to the work environment. There may be a conflict of those values. When we look at attitudes, attitudes has to do with behaviors. Anytime you look at attitudes, know that attitudes affect attitudes affect behaviors. And when we look at different attitudes, we associate those attitudes with behaviors. It's one thing for someone to say, "Well, I have a different people dealing with different attitudes or different personalities." When you talk about personalities and when you talk about different attitudes, it renders you defenseless because how can we address someone's attitude or how can we address someone's personality? But when you talk about behaviors and you're able to identify the components that are associated with each individual behavior, then you're able to develop a strategy. You cannot develop a strategy if you begin to talk about someone's personality or you begin to talk about someone's attitude. It renders you ineffective and unable to engage or unable to address particular issues. So when you think about handling conflict in terms of relational conflict, think about it in terms of behaviors. There's also, in terms of relational conflict, communication. People are communicating in vastly different ways that we have 5, 10, 15, 20 years ago. The methodology of the communication, the preference of communication, communication has taken on a whole different measure and a whole different methodology. The way people communicate, the devices by which people communicate, the truncation and the icons that people are using. People are expressing a lot more digitally, and when people express their thoughts and ideas in a digital format, it can lead to conflict. It's hard enough to understand what a person means to say in a email format. You take that in a text format or in a tweet format or in a format that has different forms of truncated formats. You see a lot of things like this, the truncated wording that people are utilizing now, and you can never decipher the emotion behind it. Maybe it's a miscommunication or a misunderstanding. So there can be, as far as relationship, communication can create a form of conflict. As far as processes, when you think of processes, yeah, body language, voice inflection, tone are all points of communication also, right? In a face-to-face environment in communication, 55% of the communication is from body language. 55% of body language. So it isn't what you say, it's what you see with a person in front of you. So when you are communicating, it's what you see, not what you necessarily hear. When you're not in a face-to-face environment, it's 85% relates to tone. Um, Tone in a non-face-to-face environment, it's how something is said that can determine whether something is communicated accurately and understood accurately. So when we communicate with goals in mind. What is the goal? Well, the goal in communication is the process of communicating to create understanding. So when you communicate, you want to think of communicating to create understanding. When you think of process, we think of work habits, we think of tenure, ego, all of these different things can create conflict. And also tasks, the different tasks. People have different priorities. People have different goals. People are unwilling to give up those priorities because it's important to them. They have certain goals, and they'll feel like there's a loss of power if they surrender those priorities, or if they compromise those priorities, or if they'll put those goals off for someone else's goals. They'll feel like they have a loss of power. So tasks can be a source of workplace conflict. So the types of workplace conflict, the common types of workplace conflict that you will experience are relational, process, and tasks. Now, what happens when we have conflict? Conflict can be emotional in nature. What is the number one emotion that you feel that is expressed in conflict? What is the number one emotion that you have experienced that is expressed in conflict? Yeah, anger, right? We all are very familiar with it, right? Anger, anger, and it's true, anger. People expressed anger, but it's never about the anger. Christine, you said it right, right? It's anger, but it's frustration and it's hurt. It's never really about the angry. Anger is a secondary reaction to a primary action. Think about anger in terms of an iceberg. Anger is at the tip of the iceberg, and all the other more complex emotions are underneath it. Anger is at the tip. It's not the all comprising authentic emotions. All the authentic, genuine emotions rest at the bottom. Anger is at the tip. It is not the genuine, it is not the true source of a person's motivation. Right, Michael, it could be fear also. It could be frustration. It could be hurt. It could be anxiety. It could be worry. But people generate anger because people feel that anger gives them what they need at the moment. Anger gives them its fuel, its adrenaline, it's extroverted, it's energy. It makes them feel powerful when they feel powerless. It's a manufactured sense of control when people feel like they have no control. Now, there is a number one reason why people express anger in conflict and in general. What do you believe the number one reason why people express anger? What is the number one reason? And think about the last time that you became angry for being attacked. Okay. Defense. Okay. Misunderstanding. Okay. Yeah. Now, this may surprise you. Protecting my baby. Yeah. Right. Protecting my baby. Betrayal. Yep. Now, tell me what you think about this. This is the number one reason why people become angry, feeling unheard or devalued, right? Change. Whatever is currently happening right now, whether it be environmental, circumstantial, whether there is a threat, whether that's threat that or a perceived threat, whether it's real or imagined, they are looking to change. They're looking to change the threat. They're looking to change the situation. They're looking to change the environment. They're looking to change the source of the betrayal. They're looking to change feeling unheard or feeling devalued or feeling disrespected. They're looking to reinforce some form of change. If I feel unheard, I'm going to become angry so that I can change that and feel heard. I'm going to be heard. And so I incorporate anger and I utilize anger to change my situation, my circumstance, to change the level of threat or the threat itself, to change whatever is currently happening. The number one reason why people incorporate anger is for the purpose of change. Now, I want you to think about that the next time that you're involved in some form of conflict or the next time that you're angry. Tell me how you feel about this particular statement in relationship to the last time that you were angry or any time that you have experienced conflict and someone became angry in front of you. No, I'm not talking about change itself. I'm not talking about changes like changes of process or changes of software. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about changes of a situation or changes of of a circumstance. If I feel like I'm being unheard, and I want to feel heard, I'm going to become angry, so I become heard. If I feel like I'm being disrespected, I'm going to become angry so that I no longer am disrespected. I'm not talking about I'm afraid of change itself. That's a different type of change. Um, so I'm talking about the reason and the purpose why I become angry is to instill or incorporate some type of change to manipulate the circumstance or the situation. Does that make sense? Do you guys understand what I'm saying? Okay. Okay. Now, when we have conflict, there are some things that we can say and some things that we don't say. Um, now, one of the things that we don't say that when we're in conflict is "I promise," because you may find yourself promising something that you're unable to deliver. But what you do say is "I will do everything that I can," because there's going to be some things that are outside your spectrum, some things that you're not going to be able to do. Another thing that you can say is, or that you don't say, is calm down. It has been proven within the history of humanity that no one has ever calmed down from somebody simply suggesting to calm down. Has anybody here ever calmed down while you're upset and somebody suggests to you to calm down? Has anybody actually ever really calmed down? Um, what does that cause you to do when you're upset? No, you walk off, right? Never, right, Diane? Yeah, no one's ever really calmed down. It just kind of it makes you even more upset, probably. Yep. So you can say, I am sorry for your experience, and I'm going to show you what some of these things, some of these phrases do. Yeah, or you stop responding, right? You walk away, you stop responding, right? Some of the things that you won't want to say, it's policy. A lot of times when we're helping individuals or we're helping, maybe you're helping an external customer, um, when you say it's policy, policy only matters to us. Policy doesn't matter to the external customer. This is how policy helps us. You want to talk about how the benefits of the policy, how the policy is a benefit, not because it's policy. People are not going to stop and realign their thought process or their emotions simply because of the fact that we claim policy. Um, we want to talk about the benefits of the policy. We don't want to say, "Why are you mad? Why are you upset? Why are you getting mad at me?" I can hear that you're anxious. I can hear that you're upset. I can hear that you're worried. Let's talk about what's creating the level of anxiety. Let's talk about what you're upset about. Let's talk about what you're worried about. Let's see what we can do to mitigate this. Yeah, good tips for phone callers. Yeah, for my irate callers too. Yep, exactly, Leanne. Yeah. Now, Um, here's what our approach could be here. First of all, when we approach people that are upset or we're involved in conflict, the first thing that you want to do also is know yourself. Have a sense of self-awareness. Okay. First of all, what am I feeling? We want to know what our feeling because we don't want to become engrossed with what they're feeling. Anger is contagious, and you don't want to become infected by somebody else's anger. It's very easy for that to happen, and it's common. So know yourself. Be self-aware. Be non-defensive. Whatever they say has nothing to do with you. They may be upset, they may be angry, they may be upset with a process, with a procedure, with a policy. They may make it about you, but know that it's probably not about you. So being defensive is only going to add fuel to the fire. Be non-defensive and retain your own emotional independence. Be emotionally independent. Think logically, think reasonably, think rationally, but not emotionally. If you think emotionally, what's going to happen is you're going to say or do something that you may find yourself regretting later on. Retain your own emotional independence. Now, step number two, baiting language. Baiting language. Now, when people are engaged in conflict, and especially when there's emotion that's involved, you will find people will utilize language and will say things that they would not have when they are not. angry. And yes, I understand what you're saying, John. Sometimes it's hard when the other person is irrational, right? It is. They're irrational. So you know that they're irrational, and that's why they're saying it. I'll give you an examples right here. This is baiting language. You might hear some stuff, some things like this. Hey, Chief, you're really working out of your element, aren't you? Yeah, you're really working out of your element. It's. I can tell. This is beyond you, right? Um, Here's another one. I can't believe you passed your probationary period. Are you seriously working here? All of you public servants, boy, you really got it easy. I tell you don't even really work, right? I can't believe you actually work here. Or they'll say something like, "Hey, you know what? You work for me. I'm a taxpayer. I'm your boss. You work for me. I tell you what to do. You don't tell me what to do, right?" Here's another thing. Um, I need to speak with someone who can really help me. Is there a man available? Leanne, is that your name, Leanne? Can I speak with someone else? Someone who can really help me? Can I speak to a man? Is there a man here? Um, and so this is baiting language. This is baiting language. Now, I understand it's hard and I understand it's difficult, but it becomes even more difficult if you bite into the language. If you bite into the baiting language, you allow yourself to become emotionally, mentally, psychologically manipulated. You yourself bite into the hook and you allow yourself to be controlled. And I know we say it's difficult, but by virtue of us reacting, not responding, but reacting by sheer emotion, we take our own logic and reason and we push it to the side and we react with our own emotions also. And we bypass our reason and rationale and we react the same way. And then we become emotionally manipulated. Then they just really say that they can do whatever they want with us. This is the purpose of baiting language. This is the reason why people utilize baiting language. And I know it's difficult and I know it's hard, but understand there is a reason why people utilize baiting language. I pay your salary. You work for me. I'm the one that pays your salary, right? I mean, all these different things that people will say. Now, here's what happens when you get a negative message. And we all get negative messages in conflict. We've all been there. We've all done this. You have a choice. You have a decision on what you're going to do with a negative message. Here's what you can do with it. When you have a negative message, you can blame yourself. It's my fault. I did it. It's my fault. Or you can blame others. It's your fault. It's the state's fault. It's the county's fault. It's the city's fault. It's the governor's fault. It's the president's fault. It's the system's fault. You can blame others, or um, you can sense your own feelings and needs. Okay, what do I need right now? What do I need? What do I need to do? What do I need to do to help myself in this particular situation? Okay, I need to think reasonably. I need to think rationally. I sense my own feelings. I want to make sure that I'm in control of my feelings so that I don't give the other person control of my feelings by biting into the baiting language. Because I know if I bite into the baiting language, I'm giving the other person control of my own feelings and my own thoughts. So I sense my own feelings and I know what I need to do. Or you can sense the other person's feelings and needs. Okay, they're upset right now and they're not necessarily thinking correctly. It's not about me. What do I hear when they're talking? They're using all this different type of language. It's negative language. I'm getting a negative message. But what's really happening? What do I hear? Do I hear anxiety? Do I hear fear? Do I hear worry? Do I hear stress? What do I hear? I know that anger is being expressed, but it's not necessarily anger. It's always something else. Do not focus on the anger. When you focus on the anger, you are trying to take control of their emotional state of mind. You're not in charge of their emotional state of mind. That's not what you're responsible for. You're not responsible for the other person's emotional state of mind. What you're responsible for is trying to find a way where both you and the other person can meet and compromise and bring a solution where there may have been a misunderstanding, a miscommunication, where it was a process or a task or relational, whatever the case may be, and that you can bring clarity to the situation. Now, step number 3, bridging language. Bridging language sounds like this. You can say something like this, and you don't have to say something exactly like this. This is my own verbiage. And use it to your own, change it, twist it, move it to the way that you would speak. You could say something, you know what, I'm sorry for your difficult experience. If I was in your shoes, I'd feel the same way. This is emotional validation. You're validating their emotional experience. People can't get mad at you for validating their emotional experience. I'm validating the fact that you are experiencing something difficult. Um, Now, whether it's your fault or it's not your fault, that's besides the point. It doesn't matter. What you're doing is you're trying to find an area of connectivity. And I'm trying to find that connectivity by using bridging language. I'm sorry for your difficult experience. If I were in your shoes, I'd feel the same way. Emotional validation. Or you could say something like this. If I can't take care of this, you know what? I'll find out who can. This is positive assurance. Let's let the person know that, listen, I'm going to try to work on this as much as I can. But if at the end of the day, if it come to find out, if I'm not able to provide an answer, I'm going to make sure that there's someone else is. I'm not going to leave you. I'm not going to leave you hanging. I'm not going to put you on hold. Or I'm not just going to transfer you to somebody. I'm going to find out who can. This is positive assurance. What this does is it breaks down the barriers. The barrier, the main obstacle that you are facing when you're involved in conflict is an emotional obstacle. It's not an intellectual. It is not a cognitive obstacle. It's not a social or a process. It is always the number one obstacle that you're going to find yourself having to overcome is an emotional obstacle. And this is what bridging language does. It helps you to break down the emotional obstacle so that you can um, help to reduce the irrational conversation and move back into the rational conversation. Because when people are emotional, more than likely they're going to be irrational many times. So you want to break down the emotional barriers through bridging language by validating, by positive assurance, and also you can use language like this. Thank you for your patience. I know that you've been waiting a long time. I want to thank you for your patience. Why? Well, because they are also contributing in this process. Even though that you may have conflict with the individual, or even though the individual has conflict in some particular way, and I don't mean you have conflict. The individual has conflict with maybe a process, a procedure. Maybe they don't like the way things are in terms of the processes. You're thanking them for their patience. You're accommodation contribution. Uh, their contribution is their patience, and you're commenting on their patience. They're contributing something, and that thing is their patience, and you're commenting on it. You're thanking them for having it. The other type of bridging language is, hey, listen, I believe we may have started on the wrong foot. Can we start over? You're asking them permission to start over. It's things aren't working out. None of you are not. Um, um, none of you are coming together here. I believe we may have started on the wrong foot. Can we start over? This is compromise and concession. I'm looking to. I want to. I'm conceding that we are starting on the wrong foot. That it's not going anywhere. I'm asking permission to start over. This is collaborative accommodation. What do you say we work on this together and find out the solution that works for the both of us? Accommodation contribution. Can't that come off as condescending? Well, let me ask you this. Um, Ivan, I want to thank you for being in the class today. I know that you have a lot going on, or I can assume that you have a lot going on a Friday, and I want to thank you for spending time with me and spending these 30 minutes with me today out of your day. How does that sound to you? How do you receive that, Ivan? Yeah. And so that's what it would sound like. That's how you would utilize it. I want to thank you for your patience. I know that you've taken a lot of time with this, and I'm sorry that you had to go through this. I'm gonna work on this as much as I can. So I do want to thank you for your patience. And so these are all different strategies and all different things that you can utilize. Step one, step two, step three. Don't bite into the baiting language. Don't get hooked. Remember who you are. Know that and retain your own emotional independence. Know that anger is a secondary reaction to a primary action. People utilize anger because it gives them a manufactured sense of control when they feel they have no control. It's never really about the anger, it's always about something else. And don't get caught up with the baiting language, and utilize bridging language to help decrease the amount of tension and emotions so that you can get past the emotional obstacle. I want to thank you guys for being here in the class. Take care. Happy Friday to y'all, and thank you.
All right, yeah. Thank you, Gil, for that helpful presentation, and thank you to everybody for joining us today. Please be sure to check out our website at cpshr.us for the slide deck and the recording. I did also just put a link in the chat for Gil's upcoming virtual and in-person trainings at the training center. And if you're virtual, you can attend from anywhere. So thank you again, and have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, Angelique.